Hello students, myself Dr. Sucharita Bhattacharya from Guru Nanak Institute of Technology as a subject teacher of physics, again starting my lecture series on electromagnetic theory for physics 2, which is valid for third semester BTech course and the streams under consideration is computer science and engineering and information technology. Today I am starting the lecture 2. Now, in the last class, I have given the detail about the entire module 4, that is electromagnetic theory, covering 11 lectures in physics 2. But today, what I am doing, I am just starting my today's lesson on electrostatics, that is submodule 4.01, and it will cover today's lecture session, the introduction part of the electrostatics, Gauss's law in integral form and conversion into differential form, and the concept of potential. Now, the today's lesson plan covers the following questionnaire, which will be addressed one after another. First is, what do you mean by electrostatics? Next, what is charge? Then what about the very specific properties of charge, that is quantization of charge, and what is conservation of charge. Next, which two laws are discussed more commonly in electrostatics? What is Coulomb's law naturally, and what is Gauss's law? These two will be covered here. After Coulomb's law, we will try to address how to define the electric field. Then, what is a conservative field? Naturally, when field comes, then potential will come there. So what is electric potential and how to conceptualize it? So these are the following questionnaire which we will cover try to address rather in today's lesson plan. So let us start with one by one. So what about electrostatics? Electrostatics means study of physics for stationary electric charges. The name suggests that, electrostatics. So study of physics for stationary electric charges. Naturally, next question arises, what about electric charge then? It is that physical property of matter carried by elementary particles like electron and the proton, which causes it to experience a force when placed in an electromagnetic field. Electric charge can both be positive as well as negative, because we know that proton carries the positive charge and electron carries the negative charge. Next, the two very important properties of electric charge. It is quantized, it is conserved. Now, what do we mean by quantization of charge? Electron carries, we all know, the smallest amount of charge, which is the fundamental unit of negative electricity. So, no charge less than the charge of electron as well as proton is possible. So, one electronic charge is called the quantum of electric charge. Now, if a body has Q amount of charge, then how to express it in terms of the quantum of charge? Then we can write Q equal to N into E. So, N is the integer, that is number of elementary charges present in the body, and obviously E is the charge of an electron or charge of a proton. That means the charge of any object can be changed only in steps of E, which is known as the quantization of charge. The charge of any object can be changed only in steps of E, which is known as the quantization of charge. Now, what about the conservation of charge? Definitely, like conservation of energy, in case of conservation of charge, we also state that this universal law gives us the total charge of an isolated system remain constant. Charge can neither be created nor destroyed. I am repeating, the total charge of an isolated system remain constant. Charge can neither be created nor be destroyed. Naturally, the question here arises, what do we mean by an isolated system? Let us consider as a very simple example the case of a flannel and an ebonite rod. You know the flannel, a piece of cloth. It is a very special one we use in winter. Now, flannel individually is a system which is uncharged as a whole. Similarly, if we consider the ebonite rod, it is also uncharged as a whole. So, if we consider the system, isolated system consists of flannel and the ebonite rod, at the beginning, the net charge is 0. Now, if we rub the ebonite rod with the help of flannel, then what will happen? Electrons from flannel will move to the ebonite rod. Electrons from flannel will move to the ebonite rod. Some of the electrons definitely, depending upon the rubbing. Now, previously, the same number of positive and negative charges were present in the flannel as well as in ebonite rod because they were two systems which are uncharged as a whole. Now, when you are rubbing the ebonite rod with flannel, few of the electrons will go to the ebonite rod depending upon the time of rubbing. Now, what about the situation after rubbing then? Number of electrons decreases from flannel and it is moving to the ebonite rod. So naturally, flannel is now positively charged because some negatively charged electrons are moving from it. So negative charge amount is decreasing and that negative charges is moving to the ebonite rod. So its negative amount of charge increasing. Now how many? The amount of negative charges which are coming out from flannel to the ebonite rod, that is the same amount of negative charges ebonite rod is gaining. So the net effect is again 0. But after rubbing, ebonite rod is now negatively charged and the flannel is positively charged. Though their sum total remain 0 as a whole because it is the isolated system where from flannel the electrons are moving to ebonite rod. That means when we are talking about the charge body, what we are meaning? It is the excess of charge. It is the excess of charge. So before rubbing, they were uncharged, flannel as well as ebonite. But after rubbing, both are charged. It is positively charged, it is negatively charged, though the net charge again of this system of flannel and ebonite rod is 0 before rubbing as well as after rubbing. So I think you understand what about the conservation of charge. Let us now move to the two basic laws of electrostatics. When we are talking about the charge, we are talking about the point charge first. So the first law which we have to consider definitely is the Coulomb's law, which was introduced by Coulomb way back in 1784 for point charges. Now, what about the Coulomb's law? According to Coulomb's law, we all know that if we consider 2 point charges, say Q1 and Q2, which are separated by a distance, say r, and kept in free space, then definitely there will be the force of interaction between these 2 point charges. Now, the amount of interaction is found according to Coulomb's law to be directly proportional to the product of 2 charges, that is Q1, Q2, and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Now, the force of interaction will be attractive if Q1 and Q2 charges are of opposite sign. That means one is positive, other is negative. And the force of interaction will be the repulsive if they are of similar charges. That means both are positive or both are negative. Now, the direction along which they will move, obviously along the line joining the 2 charges, that is along R. And the proportionality constant in SI system of unit is considered to be 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. So, the magnitude of the force according to Coulomb's law between 2 point charges is Q1, Q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught R square, where epsilon naught is free space permittivity. The value is 8.854 into 10 to the power minus 12 farad per meter. But we all know that force is a vector quantity. So, if we want to express it in terms of vector, How to do it? If the vector 1, I already mentioned in my first lecture that I will consider the vector quantity with bold letter. So if vectorially is expressed as q1 q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught r square into, there will be the unit vector associated in the direction of r. Now unit vector r is written as r vector by magnitude of r. That means, what about f? Vectorially q1 q2, then r vector divided by 4 pi epsilon naught r cube. Let us clarify this point with the help of this all important diagram. Here we have taken the 2 point charges q1 q2, which are kept at position vectors r1 and r2, which are kept at the position vectors r1 and r2 with respect to some origin of the coordinate system. Now, if we consider the force on the test charge q2 due to the source charge q1, that means here we are considering the force of interaction will be provided by q1 and q2 will experience that force. So here q1 is considered to be the source charge and q2 is considered to be the test charge. So force on test charge q2 due to the source charge q1 obviously will be equal to F21, force on 2 due to 1, and F21 according to Coulomb's law is written as q1 q2 into r2 minus r1 vector divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into r2 minus r1 mod whole cube. From this expression it is coming. Here r is represented by r2 minus r1, how it is coming. Now q1 is working on q2. So what about the direction? Direction will be along this. Now what about this direction representing? According to law of triangle of vectors, we know r1 plus this AB distance equal to r2. According to the sign of the vector, that is r1 plus AB distance equal to r2. So what about this AB distance? That is r2 minus r1. And this AB distance is nothing but r21. This AB distance is represented as r21. That means the separation between q1 and q2 in the direction of f21. So f21 is q1 q2 into r2 minus r1 by 4 pi epsilon naught mod r2 minus r1 whole cube. Naturally, the force F12 on test charge q1 due to charge q2, that means the other way. Force F12 on test charge q1 due to the source charge q2. Now, what will be the change q1 q2? Now it will be r1 minus r2 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into mod r1 minus r2 whole cube, because this time the direction will be along F12. Now what about this direction? Representing, how to get it? R2 plus BA distance equal to R1. That means what about BA distance? R1 minus R2. And this BA distance is represented as R12. So F12 is represented as Q1 Q2 into R1 minus R2 by 4 pi epsilon naught mod R1 minus R2 whole cube. That means F12 equal to minus F21. So F12 equal to minus F21. F21 is along this direction and F12 is along this direction. So definitely we will get it. Now we will extend our discussion where we will consider large number of the source charges. That means not only one Q1, but here we are going to consider large number of source charges, and we will consider one test charge on which the net effect of all source charges we will try to experience. That means the net force field, what will be created on that test charge due to large number of source charges, we will now discuss in terms of principle of superposition. So let us now start
the principle of superposition. What about that? For that purpose, as already I mentioned, we are considering the point source charges Q1, Q2, Q3 to Qn. Say Q1, similarly Q2, Q3, Qn you can take anywhere. And there is a single test charge, say Q0, which are placed at position vectors of R1, R2, R3 and R0. Now, force on test charge Q0 due to source charge Q1. So, force on test charge Q0, this is the test charge only, due to the source charge Q1. So, it will act along this line and obviously the force is represented by F01 on test charge Q0 due to the source charge Q1. So, according to Coulomb's law, as we discussed in the previous slide, that F01 vector, it is represented by Q0 Q1 into R0 minus R1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by mod R0 minus R1 whole cube, as if other charges are not present. This is very, very important. Here we have the total field created by large number of source charges. But when we are considering the interaction between two charges, one the test charge and other the source charge, we are considering here as if other charges are not present. Now what about the direction? Obviously it will be along the direction joining Q1 and Q0. That means it will be R1 plus this distance equal to R0. So what about this distance? That will be R0 minus R1, which is mentioned here. Similarly, if you consider the force on test charge Q0 due to the source charge Q2, this will be the line of action. And what about that force? That is F02. So F02 will be written as Q2 Q0 then R0 minus R2 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by mod R0 minus R2 whole cube. So if we continue this way, lastly, for the force on test charge Q0 due to source charge Qn, nth one, we can write it as F01 n equal to Qn Q0 into R0 minus Rn vector by 4 pi epsilon naught 1 by mod R0 minus Rn whole cube, considering definitely no effect of others. So, total force on charge Q0 due to all point source charges located at distances R1, R2 to Rn with respect to O, the common origin of the coordinate system, when all simultaneously act according to principle of superposition, is written as F equal to F01 plus F02 plus F0n up to. This is the vector addition. That means what we will write now, Q0 by 4 pi epsilon naught. It is a common one, so let us take it out. Then rest of the term we will consider within the summation. Summation over I from 1 to n. Then what we are getting? Qi into R0 minus Ri. Qi into R0 minus Ri divided by mod R0 minus Ri whole cube. Now, this expression is nothing but all important F equal to Q0E, the expression for force, and it will ultimately give us the definition of the electric field intensity or field strength. So, this expression is written as Q0E, where E equal to 1 by epsilon naught sum over I 1 to n R0 minus Ri into Qi by mod R0 minus Ri whole cube. That means, what is the definition of the electric field intensity or field strength? That is equal to limit of Q0 tends to 0, F by Q0. Very, very important here is this limit. That means how to define the electric field intensity or field strength at a point in the force field. It is the ratio of the force experienced by the test charge placed at some point divided by the charge itself in the limit Q0 tends to 0. Now what is the meaning of this limit? Without limit, this definition is incomplete. Q0 tends to 0 means we are talking about the point charges, so that the effect of the test charge should not perturb the force field what is created by all the source charges. Very, very careful about this. That this is the point charge we are considering as the test charge which will experience the field created by the force of interactions due to all other source charges, and it must be a point charge so that it will not perturb the field created by the source charges. Now what about the unit of electric field? Obviously it is Newton per Coulomb, and that is converted to volt per meter. So we got the definition of electric field intensity or field strength. Now this is a very common picture where high tension lines are passing through some field, and we used to observe it regularly when we pass through some train along this type of field what is created due to this high tension line. Now next question is how to describe the field what is created. The answer lies in the electric lines of force. So what about electric lines of force? Now electric lines of force basically is an imaginary line. It is an imaginary line along which, if we consider a positive charge, positive unit charge moves along this line, or you can consider the negative one, but I am talking about the positive one because it will start from positive one, that's why. So electric lines of force is an imaginary line. If we consider along which a unit charge moves, then the tangent at each and every point of that line gives us the direction of the electric field at that point. So if we draw the tangent at each and every point of this imaginary line, then that will indicate the direction of the electric field at that point. These lines of force start from positive charges and end on negative charges. So inside a conductor, we don't get any electric lines of force because these are open lines. Start from positive charges, end on negative charges. And two electric lines of force never intersect, because at intersection point, if we can draw a tangent, we can draw at least actually more than one tangent at the intersection point. If two lines of force intersect, then at intersection point we can draw more than one tangent, and each and every tangent represent the direction of the electric field, which is not at all physically possible. That's why two electric lines of force never intersect. So these are the basic properties that how to realize the electric field or how to describe the electric field. It is in the terms of the electric lines of force. Now, in the previous slide, we have considered the electric field, that is in terms of the summation. Now, next question naturally arises whether electric field can be described in terms of continuous charge distribution. The answer is yes. In that case, we will just replace the summation sign by the integration, and the corresponding charge will be replaced by dq. Now, this is the general expression for electric field where we are considering it. Now, what type of charge distribution we can encounter here? The charges can be distributed over some volume. In that case, integration dq will be represented by volume integration rho dV, where rho is the volume charge density. Similarly, if the charge is smeared out continuously on some surface, then how to replace dq? It will be the surface integration sigma ds. If we consider the charge is distributed linearly along some length of the wire, say, then how to represent integration dq? It will be the line integration on lambda dl, where lambda is called the linear charge density. Sigma is the surface charge density. Now let us come to the second law of electrostatics, that is the Gauss's law, which was given by Gauss in 1813. It states that the total electric flux through a closed surface is equal to the net charge enclosed by the surface divided by free space permittivity. That means mathematically, in SI system of unit, Gauss's law is expressed as E dot ds closed surface integration, that means the flux, equal to E dot n cap ds equal to q by epsilon naught. Now what about this ds vector representing? This is the areal vector. This is the electric field. What about the meaning of ds vector? It has the magnitude ds and n cap represent the unit vector perpendicular to that element of area ds. Q is the total charge enclosed by the closed surface and epsilon naught is the free space permittivity whose value already we have given. So just take a look at this figure. It is a closed surface enclosing a volume V. We are considering a differential of surface or elemental surface ds. Now this is the direction of the unit vector on ds. This is the direction of unit vector on ds. So what about E dot ds? That is E ds cos theta, which is nothing but the electric flux. That means total number of electric lines of force coming out through some area is represented by E dot ds closed surfaces, which is called the flux of the electric field. Now what about the inferences we can draw from Gauss's law? Gauss's law follows from Coulomb inverse square law. So it is a fundamental law of electrostatics. That means along with Coulomb's law, Gauss's law is the second fundamental law of electrostatics. Gauss's law can be applied to calculate the electric field just like the case of Coulomb's law. But for the cases when there is some kind of symmetry in the field exists, that is the advantage of Gauss's law, at the same time disadvantage of Gauss's law. Advantage why? Because you can consider the different type of symmetry in the field. It may be linear symmetry, it may be areal symmetry, it may be volume symmetry. So calculations is much more simplified. But why the disadvantage? Because if there is no symmetry exists in the field, then you cannot use Gauss's law to calculate the electric field. There you have to use the Coulomb's law. That's why the two laws have their different status. For positive charge distribution, obviously flux is outward, because we have already discussed that lines of force start from the positive charge, and for negative charge it is inward, and flux is additive. If closed surface naturally does not enclose any charge, flux will be zero, because charge enclosed by the closed surface. And if there is positive and negative, both charges are present, then definitely we can say the net charge here. Surface on which Gauss's law is applied is called the Gaussian surface. Now let us come to the case of Gauss's law in differential form. Now the integral form already we have found. Let us replace here the total charge Q in the form of volume integration as rho dV. Already we have given in the slide. So E dot ds is written as volume integration rho dV by epsilon naught. Now apply Gauss's divergence theorem on the left to convert the surface integration to volume integration. We will get del dot E dV equal to rho dV by epsilon naught. Now take a look. Both sides are now expressed in terms of volume integration, which holds for any volume, big or small. So the above equation is satisfied only if the integrands on both sides are equal. We are getting so del dot equal to rho by epsilon naught from above, the well-known differential form of Gauss's law. What does it represent? The divergence of electric field at a point is equal to the volume charge density of the charge at that point divided by the free space permittivity. So divergence of electric field at a point is equal to the volume density of charge at that point divided by free space permittivity. So this is the differential form of Gauss's law, and this is the integral form of Gauss's law. Let us rearrange this differential form as del dot epsilon naught E equal to rho. That is given by del dot D equal to rho, where D epsilon naught known as electric flux density or induction vector, another very important parameter in electrostatics. So once more please, del dot D equal to rho. This is also the differential form of Gauss's law, where D equal to epsilon naught E, the electric flux density or induction vector. So in continuation with my last slide, let us now start the discussion on electric potential, its concept. That means the conceptual conceptual point of view, what about the electric potential? Already we have discussed the Coulomb's law and the Gauss's law, and from there we got the idea that electric field can be calculated from different cases using Coulomb's law and the Gauss's law. Now there is a third way to obtain electric field is from the concept of electric scalar potential V. Before going to that, let us now first have the idea about the electric potential. That means how to conceptualize it. Let us move a point charge Q from A to B along a curved path in an electric field E. So we are considering a point charge Q which is kept in an electric field, and we are taking a curved path along which we are considering Q is moving from A to B. Now force on the charge Q due to the electric field according to Coulomb's law is F equal to Q into E. So work done in displacing the charge by dl. This is the dl we have taken on this curved path, a small element of length. So work done in displacing the charge by dl is dw equal to minus F dot dl. Now F dot dl is a work done already we discussed in vector lecture, but what about minus sign? Actually here work is done by the field on the charge. Work is done by the field on the charge. Obviously it will be the negative one. So total work done or potential energy required to move Q from A to B, it is obviously W equal to the integration from A to B over F dot dl. So total work done or potential energy required to move Q from A to B is given by minus Q A to B integration E dot dl, because F equal to Q into E. So work done per unit charge equal to minus integration A to B E dot dl, which is nothing but VAB, the potential difference between A and B. Work done per unit charge is expressed as VAB, the potential difference between the points A and B here. And what about its unit? Work done per unit charge means joule per coulomb, that means volt. Joule per coulomb, so volt. And obviously negative sign implies here the loss in potential energy. Negative sign is implied here is loss in potential energy as work is done by the field on the charge. Now let us consider as an example a field E due to a point charge Q located at the origin at a distance R. So what is the expression for electric field intensity due to a point charge Q located at the origin at a distance R from the origin according to Coulomb's law? We already have seen the result, that is equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into here R vector. Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into R vector. R vector means unit vector R divided by R magnitude. So it is representing the direction along which the electric field is working. So minus A to B line integration E dot dl equal to VAB equal to minus A to B, put the value of E here, QR by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by R square dot dl. Now minus A to B Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R into 1 by R square dot dl is represented as R dr, where R is the vector representing the direction of R. Now we are considering here dl as R into dr because E directs in the radial direction. So there is no dependence on the angles is considered. So dl is replaced by R into dr along the direction of R, the element of path length. So this is the length and this is the vector, that is unit vector along that direction. Now R dot R gives us the value 1. R dot R gives us the value 1. So what about VAB? VAB equal to minus Q by 4 pi epsilon naught. Then R dot R equal to 1. So dr by R square we are getting integration from A to B. Now dr by R square, that is 1 by R square integration from A to B. What about the value? Minus 1 by R. So minus and minus, it will be plus, and we are getting Q by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by R after doing the integration where the limit is from A to B. So by putting the limit, we finally are getting VAB equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by R. It was there, upper limit is B. So 1 by RB minus 1 by RA, where RB and RA represent the value of R at point A and at point B corresponding to origin. That is equal to VB minus VA. So Q by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by RB minus 1 by RA equal to VB minus VA. That means VAB, the potential difference, is represented as VB minus VA. Now let us remove the point A to infinity, say. Let us remove the point A to infinity. That means RA now tending to infinity. And we consider in that case that B is any finite point within the field having the finite distance RB tending to R. So from the above, we are getting VA to be 0 because RA tending to infinity. VA to be 0 and VB will be equal to V because RB is any finite distance R. So from the above, we are getting the potential as V equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by R. Now, you just consider here the definition of potential with which you are familiar. What about that? The definition of potential we consider this way, that the work done to bring a charge from infinity to some point, potential at some point within the field is nothing but the work done to bring or move a charge from infinity to some point is the potential at that point. Here we have done the same thing. We have removed A to infinity. So RA tending to infinity, and from here you are getting that V equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by R. And VAB is nothing but the work done. So per unit charge. So work done to bring a unit positive charge from infinity to some point. The definition, it is followed in this expression from here. So this is nothing but the potential with which we are familiar, and that we are getting from this simple treatment. Now, what about the conception of the potential and how much it is related, and how it is related to the conservative field, that is the electrostatic field. Now, already we have got in the last slide that integration A to B dot dl equal to VAB. So, integration B to A, obviously negative sign is there, E dot dl equal to VBA. So, VBA will be equal to minus VAB. That means if we consider VAB plus VBA, we will get 0. And what about from integration point of view? That means you are just adding them. What you are getting? Closed loop E dot dl equal to 0 because E dot dl A to B plus E dot dl B to A gives you VBA plus VAB, and that is equal to 0. Very, very important expression so far as the nature of electrostatic field is concerned, because physically it means that no network is done in moving a charge along a closed path in an electrostatic field. No network is done in moving a charge along a closed path in an electrostatic field. That means it is the nature of the conservative force field. Now, applying Stokes' theorem in the above expression, that means E dot dl, what we will get? Del cross E dot ds. Del cross E dot ds equal to 0. So, del cross E equal to 0. That means electrostatic field is conservative and electrostatic field is irrotational, because curled rotation log equal to 0. So, electrostatic field is conservative and electrostatic field is irrotational, whose integral and differential form are given here respectively. So closed loop integration E dot dl equal to 0. That means no network is done in moving a charge along a closed path in an electrostatic field. Also applying Stokes theorem, in that expression we can get rotation or curl of electrostatic field is 0. That means it is irrotational field. So you can remember as an example on the vector lesson, I gave you the message any irrotational field is conservative field. So we are getting the integral and differential expression from this. Additionally, from vector calculus, it is known to us that curl of gradient of a scalar quantity is 0. So from this expression, del cross equal to 0, you can express it as curl of minus grad v equal to 0. Curl of gradient is told, so curl of grad v equal to 0. Here additionally we are using the negative sign because electric field is always from higher to lower potential. Electric field is always from higher to lower potential. That's why we are getting del curl of grad v equal to 0. So E equal to minus grad v. E equal to minus grad v, the negative gradient of scalar potential. Using the rule of vector calculus, we are obtaining it. That is curl of gradient of a scalar quantity is 0. Now here, the advantage of this expression is that you can reduce the vector problem to a scalar one using this expression, because vector field E equal to minus gradient of scalar potential. So you can reduce any vector problem to a scalar one, and definitely that is always welcome. Now, the point to mention here is what about the direction of E from the concept of potential. E equal to minus grad V. So what about the direction of grad V? We already discussed during the physical meaning discussion of gradient that it is perpendicular to the surface at any point on V equal to constant. That is called the level surface, and it is also termed as equipotential surface. So direction of E at every point is perpendicular to the surface for which V is constant, known as the equipotential surface or the level surface. I am repeating this once more. E equal to minus grad V. That means electric field is expressed as negative gradient of potential, because electric field is from higher to lower potential. And what about the electric field? It is along the gradient of V. What about the gradient of V? Electric field direction at every point is perpendicular to the surface for which V is constant. It is known as the equipotential surface. So I think all the questions with which we started today's session, that means the what about the electrostatics, so the question with which we started today, that is what about the electrostatics, what is charge, what is quantization of charge, what is conservation of charge. Now what about the two laws, that is Coulomb's law and Gauss's law, the definition of electric field, the conservative nature of electric field, the electric potential definition and its conception. Everything is addressed in a lucid manner. Still, if you have any query on the question, please feel free to ask me at the contact number what is given to you all. Okay, so let us end our today's session. I think it is now time. So thank you all. Stay safe and stay healthy. Okay.